Akame got killed, episode 14, Kill the Giant Dangerous Beast. This is a pretty fun episode because not only did it have, some pretty cool backstory for Esdeath, which mostly revolved around her dad saying, like, you die because you're weak, and that's pretty much his whole philosophy on life. But it was also a really funny episode that also did some other stuff. We got some other pretty interesting answers. Like, we find out that this villain is actually, not only is he involved with the mad scientist guy who got killed, so it kind of confirmed that he did have a second base, which, like, the angel guy was sort of debating about, like, maybe these were his before he died, and it was, like, a secret thing that he had. So it confirmed that. It meant that he knew who the scientist was, maybe just in general. It doesn't necessarily mean they knew each other, but maybe he just knew who he was and how to get to that second secret base. But it did confirm that. And we also find out that he is, I believe the guy's name, or his position is like the chancellor, whatever they call him. He's actually his son, which kind of brings up an interesting question, because it's like, alright, so that's his son, but he's basically sending all these crazy danger beasts to wipe out the capital where, you would assume he grew up. And he cares about his dad a little bit, because when the prostitute was like, oh, that's your father, he freaked out, which was right after a really funny scene when she asked him, like, what he was doing. And it was funny because of how high-pitched his voice is, and he's just like, what, bitch? And it was just, like, so high-pitched, it was really funny to me. But then it got super serious, because he would just start beating her up, because it's like, oh, what's that supposed to mean and stuff. So he cares enough that it bothers him when people say that, but I couldn't really hear the dialogue because of how they did the sound. I couldn't hear exactly what he said, so I couldn't tell if he was saying he doesn't care about his father, but he doesn't like when other people do it, or what he said specifically. But I believe that was the gist of it, where he doesn't like his dad, but he doesn't let anyone else kind of disrespect him, which is, an interesting dynamic. But it brings up the question what his plan is, considering he just let all these danger beasts out. Is he going to reveal himself, or is he just going to kind of stay, hidden in the shadows with his sort of teleportation Imperial arms, which is pretty cool. I thought that was actually kind of sweet. But it brought up an interesting question, but that was a nice little reveal. Like, now it adds a new layer. He's not just a random enemy. He's now tied to, like, the main person that's supposed to be killed by Night Raid. So brings up some questions. Why he did that? Is he going to reveal himself to his dad? What's really going to come of this? And then, of course, the backstory for Esdeath was pretty cool. And then there was all the comedy involved with her and Tatsumi being trapped on this island, and her talking about them going on dates, or, kind of like being on a romantic island and having a date. It was just really funny. And, Tatsumi decided, I'm going to spend this time and try to convince her. And then after he got the backstory and how, like, oh, so this is, her tragic backstory, basically, he thought maybe that's why she's like this. And it's like, no, I torture people because it's pretty fun. It just happened to be, northern tribesmen that killed her village, but she really just buried all those people alive just to send a message, because she's just evil like that. She's just crazy. Like, well, that was, like, I didn't even think about that. It was just like, that was just a message that I was sending. So he realized how bad she really is, and it's just like, no, it had nothing to do with, like, her past was so tragic it turned her. It's kind of just like she grew up with that idea of not being weak, and then, kind of the idea of the fact that, people just assume the capital is great and this and that, and so she, destroys the capital's enemies, and she just makes hardcore, examples out of them, which is pretty intense. Like, you just bury people alive just to send a message. That says a lot about who you are, so that was pretty interesting. We also find out what her Imperial arms technically is, and it's inside of her, so she's almost kind of like an organic Imperial arms, except she wouldn't reform if she got hit. But she drank, this goblet of blood, which I was wondering, I was like, oh, so if she took, because the guy mentioned, like, oh, you can just take a sip. I was like, okay, so if she does that, this was before, of course, like, a second before she was about to say it. I was like, oh, so she could take a sip, which means that Imperial arms can be spread out to, like, a ton of different people. And then she was like, well, no point in not drinking the whole thing. And I was like, oh, well, there goes that theory that maybe someone else in the show will actually kind of get imbued with that Imperial arms and have, like, ice powers too. But, it was pretty cool to see that. And, like, she basically she is, her own Imperial Arms, which is really sweet. It does kind of make her, it's like she's an in-between being an organic Imperial Arms and just being human using an Imperial Arms, because it's throughout, her blood system. And the way they kind of make it seem, with it being blood, maybe if she got damaged enough, it would drain away, I guess. I mean, I don't really know how that works, but I don't know. And also just the fact that she had it in general, because, it's blood, and blood does go through your system and kind of just, I don't know all the science behind how our blood flows, but basically your body makes blood constantly, so it's not like exactly the same blood all the time. So I was kind of curious, like, could that possibly just drain away over time, which her body just kind of replenishes itself? Or, I'm assuming it's just, for anime purposes, it's just permanent. But it would be interesting if she actually took any sort of damage. Would it eventually weaken her powers if she started to lose so much blood that it just kind of drained out of her? But it was fun to watch. Like, we got to see some cool stuff with her power. One of the things was, like, on this crazy island, we got to see, I guess it was like a prototype of the crazy combination form that the mad scientist had. So this was like his weird experiment island, which once again the guy knew about it when he sent him there. So don't know if that means they actually knew each other or if he just figured it out or something. But they find like a prototype version of that, and then they're like basically just hunting and eating stuff the rest of the time. But it was kind of cool, like when she did the ice pillar thing. For some reason, it was really simple, but I thought that was cool. She does like the ice spikes and stuff, and like they hold in the air. So we got to see a couple of different uses. When she made like the giant ball of ice to slam into the other, I think it was like the second or third danger beast they fought. It was cool to see those variations on her power, because mostly it was just like she touches the ground and boom, it freezes something, and she can touch someone and freeze them, and maybe I think we've seen it where she's like swung her sword and it sent out like a wave. Maybe I could easily be wrong, but it was a nice episode. The comedy was definitely really good. Like they did the cool thing with Tatsumi choosing the options like it was a game, like a visual novel. That I really loved. So that was pretty funny. Even though all the choices were the same, like he's like, aren't those all pretty much the same thing? So I like that because it was really funny. All the silly fan servicey stuff where she's jumping on him all the time, and he's like, he's trying to just convince her to turn to his side, and it's like, this isn't working, and then the backstory thing happens, and he knows he has to just get away from her because she's flat out just evil, and that's all there is to it. But I like this episode, and the ending where he goes through the portal and he escapes, and it's like, the next time we meet, we'll be enemies. I'm kind of looking forward to that. Like, I'm curious to see exactly what's going to happen, like how he's going to confront her, if he's just going to be like, hey, I mean, he couldn't do it himself, of course, because she's so insanely powerful, so it's not like he can just be like, I got it covered myself. But if he's with, the rest of Night Raid, or maybe just him and Akame, they could probably do something about it, and he'll say like, hey, I'm with Night Raid, I always have been, and then he just kind of outs himself like that. But this was a fun episode. I don't know where things are really going to go from here, but I'm excited to see what happens with, like I said, I believe his title is the Chancellor. I'm pretty sure that's wrong. But I don't know what's going to happen with his son and where they're going to take that. But I'm really looking forward to it, because right now, he's kind of, even if he revealed himself to be the one that did that, he would be an enemy of the state, because he sent these danger beasts to just kill a ton of people for no good reason. It's like, oh, send them in the mines to kill people. That one time when like the husband and wife, they got killed in their house. It was just like random stuff, people just being attacked for no reason. So he wouldn't out himself, I wouldn't think, unless he wanted to get into a crazy fight. But there's something going on with him. I don't know where they're taking it, but I like this episode. Of course, I want to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And now that we know who this mystery guy is, what do you guys think his plan is? Like, what is he going to do now that we find out that, whose son he is? Because, like I said, it seems like so far I thought he was just like, really like the first villain who was like ripping people's heads off. I thought he was just like that. It's like, oh, here's another person who's just a villain, kind of for them to kill off. And he's lasted for a while, and then it's like, oh, he's actually related to someone who's very important to the show. So I don't really know what to really expect from his character at this point, because it's really weird. He's obviously a bit on the crazy side, and obviously the murderous side as well. So I have no idea what to expect from this character, but I want to know what you guys think, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.